course I screwed that up. Strategic back again. When I got a big show, I always put myself on mute, especially like when we're putting the kids to bed, so you guys don't hear all the commotion in the background. And I forgot to take myself off of mute. So yes, I screwed up the intro yet again, but I'm gonna make it up to you guys because I've got a really good show planned for you, man. It's gonna be an awesome show. We've got Dr. Tia Cherry. That's right. Dr. Tia Cherry. We're going to reintroduce her in just a second. I just want to definitely thank you guys for joining me today. We're going to be talking about education and how it can save the Black community because there's a problem out there, ladies and gentlemen. And some of us are on a mission to make change. We're not just here to entertain, we're here to actually reach people. So before I bring the good doctor on the show, I want to just handle some housekeeping issues. Number one, hit that like button. And do me a favor, my moderators who are going to be in the room and anybody who's an oldie and a goldie or anybody who cares who's in that chat, please periodically remind folks to hit the like button because I'm going to be busy engaging in this really engaging and important conversation with Dr. Cherry. So make sure that you hit that like button. The second thing that we got to handle, that housekeeping thing we got to deal with is make sure that when you're done with this stream that you share it, that you like it, and that you share it with your friends and your family. You put it on your Facebook, put it on your Instagram, the whole nine. And the last thing, and I'm handling this stuff now because I don't want to deal with it when we start talking because this topic is too important to waste on the little things. The last thing is consider supporting the channel and becoming a member of the channel, whether it's through Patreon or the YouTube membership. We need that membership. We need that support. It's what will help us survive and weather this storm. All right. So that being said, I'm going to invite Dr. Cherry to join me on the stage. Let's do it. What's happening, Dr. Cherry?
Hey, Strategic, how are you?
I'm so happy to get you on the show. I'm going to actually bring you side by side. Let me stop
I love
hogging the street. Let me scoot over a little bit. There we go. There we go. Dr. Cherry's here, right? So what's new? I mean, I'm calling you Dr. Cherry. Like, what happened?
I received my doctorate of education. I successfully defended without revisions last Friday.
Without revision. So can you
Yes,
explain that to us little people? Because we don't
yes,
know. These are big words. These are SAT words. What's going on here? What is a revision?
absolutely. So, my dissertation was on, I worked with a public university in my state, and I provided recommendations to pretty much address the low retention and graduation rates of first generation, low income, undergraduate, Black and Hispanic males. So, with that, I it took me about 7 years to get everything done with my classes and doing the papers, working with my chair, going back and forth. And it could be anything because when I first started, we were doing APA 6. And then by the time I was almost finished, we were doing APA 7. So, needless to say, I had to go back and I had to change a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
So, pretty much what it means without revisions is that my chair didn't have any recommendations. They didn't think anything needed to be clarified. I didn't have to revise anything. And they only asked me a few questions when I was doing my defense. So it seemed like everything was all good.
So basically, what you're saying is you went before this board, right?
Yes. It
And you
was my
gave
chair of three committee
you,
members.
this committee. You gave your doctoral presentation, and they basically said you're smarter than us. You're a
I like
doctor now.
that.
Get out of here. Get out of here
I
before you
like
take
that
our
way of
job.
putting it. Yes.
I love it. Well, listen, I think this conversation was right up your alley. That's why,
Yes.
as soon as you said that you had actually obtained your doctorate, I said, we got to have you on the show because we're going to be talking about education today. And to me, one of the biggest issues that we have in the Black community is a lack of education, a lack of a desire to become educated, and a lack of respect for the institution that is education. And we got some educators in the chat like T. Williams. Appreciate you, brother. I see you there, man. So it was almost natural that we get you on the show. So can you tell us a little bit of your journey? I know we've done lives before. You've told us a little bit about your personal life, but I think it's important for people to understand that it wasn't easy for you because when
No.
people hear that somebody attains the type of success that you've attained, And this is success. It doesn't matter if you're making $20,000 a year or 300,000 a year. Just earning your doctorate is success, right?
Yes.
A lot
Yes.
of people think that maybe that was handed to you, or
Oh
maybe
no.
it was easy. Please tell us a little bit of your journey.
Well, first and foremost, when you decide you want to do anything, whether it's pursue your degree, start a business, you have to understand that life doesn't stop. So, in the midst of me trying to be focused, I encountered a lot of hurdles. First of all, when I started, I didn't end at the school that I started at originally. So, when I started, shortly afterwards, my boyfriend at the time passed away from congestive heart failure.
Mm,
Rest in peace, Gene Rick Ross Joseph. And then a year later, my mom had a massive stroke, and we didn't think she was going to make it. And not even 6 months, actually, not even 3 months later, she had to have open heart surgery.
damn.
So it was a lot of stuff. And needless to say, I wasn't focused. So I had to do a SAP appeal, which is the standard of academic progress, because
Mhm,
when you're in graduate school, the minimum is 3.3. So it's a little higher. And
mm,
I was at a 3.0. So I had to do, the appeal. I missed it by one day and they were not hearing me. It was
mm,
like, too bad, so sad. Yeah, keep your documents. We don't want it. So because
mm,
of that, I accumulated a balance. I switched jobs in between then, working overtime, double time, anything that you could think of. And of
mm,
course, in the midst of that, you start to lose friends because you're not as available as you used to
mm,
be. You're not
mm.
able to go, even though you were going to their events at one time, because
Right.
you stopped, you're not able to go to their birthday parties and their housewarm, all of these different things, and you start to lose friends because then the conversation become, oh, is she really busy? Is she really,
Yeah.
And the other thing is too, I'm the only one in my inner circle that has a child. And it's very rare that people will say, hey, let's hang out and bring your child. Or, hey, you want to
Mhm.
go to the movies and bring your child,
Right, right.
and also take care of my mom. So, it was a lot. And fast forward, I was able to pay off that balance, raise my credit score to get approved for those Grad Plus loans.
Mhm.
And, I was able to get the job that I have now by the grace of God. And the rest is history.
Man, congratulations, man. And it just shows that nothing that you can achieve in this life comes easily. You've got to put in the hard work, you've got to make sacrifices.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess I want to jump into it, right?
Yeah. Let's do it.
And I think you're probably an expert in this. I mean, damn, you are an expert in this. So we look at the black community and we see this deficit in education,
Hmm.
not in the entire community. I want to start off by saying that what we're talking about here is not every single black person. I have black skin. I'm a professional and I have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
You have black skin and you're a doctor, right? We're talking about inner city, low income individuals, which makes up a significant proportion and percentage of the black population at large, right?
Absolutely.
So even though it's not every African American, it affects all of us as a community. And the things that are birthed from it, like crime, affects everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of color. It affects black people who live in those communities, who are hardworking, educated people and love their community and don't want to run away from their community to greener pastures. It affects
Mhm.
them. It affects the people who live around those communities, so forth and so on. So how do we get to this point where we're in the plantation and we're fighting to learn the Western language? We're
Yeah.
fighting to understand this Bible that's being read to us to justify our enslavement, to being freed, and then once again setting up our own institutions, black colleges, black vocational schools, and thriving in many instances, to get to the point where you are right now, where nobody in the black community talks about education. All we see bombarded at us on social media and pop culture is just entertainment from the black community, twerking, basketball, football, etc. How did we get there, Miss Cherry? Dr. Cherry, excuse me.
Wow. Well, I know Dr. Joy DeGroy. She has a wonderful book about
Mhm,
the post traumatic slave syndrome. And a lot of the stuff that she detailed in there stems from slavery. Because
mhm,
when you think about it, we weren't able to be educated. Some of us, we snuck and we got a little bit of education that we could.
mhm,
And even then, they were tormented, they were beaten, all of these things, especially when they found out that they could read. And then when
mhm,
you fast forward, let's look at the Plessy versus Ferguson case, which is one of the
mhm,
things that I examined in my paper,
mhm,
where it was pretty much okay for education to be segregated amongst, Black marginalized communities, because it was, oh yeah, as long as it's separate but equal. But
Right.
then when you fast forward to the Brown versus Education case, it's like,
Mm.
wait, hold on now. There was nothing that was equal,
Right.
so there were deplorable conditions. They didn't have the same resources as their counterparts. And it even got to the point where it was like, wait a minute, some of them aren't even reading at the level that they're supposed to be at. And it
Mhm.
affects us. People also fail to realize that intergenerational trauma is real. So if
Mm.
you think about it, and I'll give a quick example. If you look at, let's say, the first generation, which is our grandparents, they had to deal with, let's say, war, poverty. And then you look at the second generation, which is our parents. Because of that, let's say they had to deal with alcoholism, maybe domestic violence. And then when you get to the
Mm.
third generation, which is us, now we're dealing with anxiety, depression. And people fail to realize that all of those things are interconnected and it affects
Mm.
us. And that's one of the things that we need to deal with. And sidebar, that's also why I'm a big advocate for mental health, because you'd be surprised at how all of that stuff is connected and it affects us. And that's why I
Mm.
think that's why we're where we're at right now.
Mm. Do you think that there are other factors that also contributed to it at this moment, like the media and pop culture? How do you feel that that plays? Because I agree with everything you said, but how do you feel that actually plays into perpetuating that mentality or that mental illness?
I definitely agree with you, going back to in terms of their stance on education, because if you think about it, that's why it's easy to get someone like a Cardi B to encourage you to vote, let's say,
Mm.
as opposed to someone like me. I could come into your classroom all day and night and tell you this is what you need to do. You may be on your phone, you may be not paying attention, because it's almost as if, because of social media, and I hate to say this, their
Mhm.
view of success is different.
Mm.
So how you define it may be, oh yeah, she obtained her doctorate degree, whereas for them it's like, oh yeah, that's nice. Where's your Range Rover? What house
Mhm.
do you have? Where do you live? Like they equate it with things
Mhm. Can you
as
twerk,
opposed.
Dr. Cherry? Can you twerk?
That's a conversation for another. Oh, sorry.
But I mean, but like if you're not twerking, it's like you're nobody. You know what I mean? That's like
You're right.
entertainment. Come on. Like even
You're
my kids are
absolutely
twerking. I'm
right.
like, what are you doing? But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but you're absolutely right. And it's all in the
Mhm.
way that you presented yourself. I remember one of the secretaries had said to me last year, she was like, do you even own a pair of jeans? And I'm like, yeah, I do, but I'm not going to wear that to work, even on dress down
Mm.
days. Because,
Right.
for example, I already look like one of the students. So
Mhm.
if I walk into an office, I want you to still have that same level of respect. And it's sad, but sometimes you do
Mhm.
have to, dress the part, blazers every day and things like that,
Mhm.
because you want people
Mhm.
to respect you.
Right.
And it's sad, but I've had instances where I've walked into offices and they try to treat me like a student, so I had to start wearing my name badge and I had to start saying who I was before I asked them a question. And it's sad, but it happens.
Mm.
But that's another thing too that contributes to a lot of the issues for why a lot of students start school and then don't finish,
Right.
which is another issue that we need to address.
Mm. See, like when I look at the state of the community, I get the feeling sometimes that the powers that be don't take us seriously. It's like they're almost always communicating to the lowest common denominator of our culture. Like they're always trying to reach the subculture, as Mr. T put it in the comment section, of
Yeah.
black culture and not everybody else. I want to give you, before you comment on what I just said, I want to give you an example of what I mean when I talk about this lowest common denominator. Let me bring this in right now. All right. Let me get the pause off.
Trey Tracks, I think we got one. It's voting season, bruh.
No voting, no loving. No voting, no touching. No voting, no nothing. No voting, no fucking. No voting, no fucking. No voting, no loving. No voting, no touching. No voting, no nothing. No voting, no fucking. No voting, no fucking. BLK app looking for some action. Swear the homie Scott was happening. Face is a 9, abs a 10, D is a to be determined. He got mad jokes, he don't seem broke. The only red flag, he said he don't vote. This midterms.
Now I look at this, right, and they're trying to basically say, in a censored way, no
Mm-hmm.
voting, no actual relations, right? But when you look at the the way that the people are showcased, right? Like we look at white culture, we look at their transgender people, like what's the Kylie Jenner father, Chris Jenner, I believe.
Yes.
Look how Chris Jenner
Hey,
carries herself. Caitlyn Jenner, excuse me. I said
mm-hmm.
herself. I tried to give her respect. I just forgot that it was Caitlyn Jenner. So I'm very big on that. Respect people. I may not agree with everything you, but I want to respect you how you want to be respected. So look how
Absolutely.
Caitlyn Jenner carries herself, right? And look how this transgendered person by the name of, do you know the name of them?
Saucy
Saucy
Santana.
Santana. Look how they're carrying themselves. And aside from that, look at the whole premise of the video, that African Americans are so sexualized that we have no control of ourselves and sex just runs our lives, that we should use that as a tool to ensure that you vote.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It
It
definitely
definitely.
bothers me. I mean, some people feel like you have to
You have
meet
to
people
meet
where
people
they
where they
are
are
to give
to
them
give
the
them the
information they
information they
need.
need,
But
but
there are
there
better
are
ways
better
that we
ways
can
that
do
we do
this.
this. Mm, absolutely.
Yeah, there are definitely better ways that we can do this to address our communities. And it can be us. We can go out there and we can tell them until they're blue in the face why they need to vote, or why they need to apply and go to college, or why they need to do certain things. And unfortunately, they're not going to listen. But you get your saucy Santana up there twerking, and now they're going to pay attention and entertain. And also, it looks like it's a cheap promo for the BLK dating app,
Mm.
so that could probably also be the reason why they had that in there about sex. It's crazy, but if the check is right, you'd be surprised at what a lot of people will do.
But I don't see the same, I don't see that same type of marketing for any other ethnic group. I don't see that in the Latino community, the Asian American community, the Indian American community, or the Caucasian American community. I don't see anybody advertising for subcultures and therefore representing everybody as though they have the same values as that subculture. And I'm just wondering, why is it that black people have to always be framed like that with those type of sensibilities?
I definitely agree with you. The other thing is too, a lot of times when you look at these our counterparts' household, these are conversations that they're regularly having. Whether it's voting, it's going. Even if you don't know who the candidates are, if the conversation at the table is, okay, look, I'm a Republican, you're a Republican, therefore you vote Republican. Guess what? They're going to vote Republican, even if they don't really, go. And it could be Democrat, it could be whatever. But my point is, these conversations are had in their household. Same thing with going to college. In our communities, is very rare that you have people talking about that. And unfortunately, like I said, they feel like they have to meet them where they are. So yeah, let's throw Cardi B in there. Let's throw an NBA young boy in there. Let's throw whoever it is that they identify with to get them to do what they need to do and vote. We see it a lot with what happened in what was it, the previous election. A lot of people are like, hey, you got to vote for Biden. You got to get him in office, whether you agree or not. A lot of people were behind it, and some people regret that decision, others don't, but that's another conversation for another day. But it's like, okay, such and such is telling me this is what I need to do, so they're going to do it.
Right. So, all right. I this is one thing that I'm very interested in, right? In terms of college. You said about college usually is a rare thing in the African American community when we're talking about mostly the subculture, right?
Yeah.
We look at all these other ethnicities that are coming into America, right? I'm gonna bring this up here real quick to like really give you guys a visual. So these are all Indian CEOs in America. This guy, Sundar Pichai, not to butcher his name, is the boss of Google. We're streaming on his platform right now. He's not
That's
the
right.
person who created it. We Sergey Brin and his boy that never talks. That's the people who created it. He's the guy who's steering the ship, right? This
Mm-hmm.
guy, Satya Nadella over here, this is the CEO of Microsoft, the software that's on this laptop that I'm using, right? We watch and we observe how these other ethnicities have immigrated to America and they've taken education seriously. And
That's right.
now, irrespective of their color, these are brown skinned men, right? And we're told that America is the most racist country on the planet. But these are brown skinned men who are now successful running the most powerful corporations in the world, right? How do we not look at what's happening in this country and and understand that the key to that success is through education, and yet still not at least break the cycle, that cycle that you made a good point about. I agree with it. That cycle that started on the plantation, that
Yeah,
cycle that was buttressed by Jim Crow laws and separate but equal doctrines,
yeah, yeah.
and the destruction of places like the Black Wall Street, etc., and the influx of crack cocaine into the hood by the
Hmm.
government. I believe that. A lot of people don't believe that. I believe that the CIA did that, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You guys get zero conspiracies from the Strategic Eyes show. Yes, I'm telling you, I believe that's what happened. Why aren't
Hmm.
we learning that we need to change our thought pattern and actually start taking education seriously? Why not learn from what these other people are doing to achieve the same success?
And
And
also, you
also,
have to
you
look at the
get the
value system,
values
because with a
because
lot
with
of
a lot of
people, for
people, for
example, I'll
example,
throw my son in there. My son is about 6'3", 6'4", and he's about the same complexion as myself and not a tad lighter. And he played basketball when he was in elementary school and all of that up until 8th grade. And his freshman year, when he went to high school, I asked him, I said, okay, these are the sports that the high school offers, what is it that you want to do? And he's like, maybe I'll try football. Okay. But then he saw that they had a robotics team and a gaming club, and he
Mm,
did that. And I remember when I said, okay, well, this is what you want to do, because I feel like the world is your oyster at this age. If
mhm,
you want to try different things, go ahead, I support you.
mhm,
And I'll never forget, there were people, predominantly men, to be honest
mhm,
with you. But there were people who are like, "Oh my God, you're crazy. What are you doing? You need to get him on somebody's basketball court. That could be the next LeBron. That
mhm,
could be this. That could be that." And people failed to
mhm,
realize, if we would encourage more of our young Black boys, and I may say boys often because, again, that was a topic of my research. I focused on Black and Hispanic males, not to just,
mhm,
discard the women. But if we encourage more of our young Black males to go into STEM, we can be up there in those figures
mhm,
that you just did. Instead, we encourage them to play ball, which, again, if we go back into history, once schools were integrated, especially these colleges and universities, they didn't care about whether our Black and brown boys got educated. They wanted them out there to play sports. So as
mhm,
long as they were playing their sports, they were okay. But they didn't have access to those residence facilities, the dining halls. It was almost like you were still segregated. But when it came
mhm,
time to make their money and get out there on that field, oh yeah, 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 we want you now. So with my
mhm,
son, I enrolled him in the summer program that they had at Rutgers, Generation Code. And
mhm.
because of it, after the summer program was over, not only did they give him, I think it was like the Oculus, they gave him a new MacBook Pro, and they
That's
gave him
awesome.
$1,000 stipend because they made an app, him and
Right.
the that he was in. So, and he was just so enthused about it. And I'm
Mhm,
like, okay, had I not listened to my son and I had listened to what the people were telling me,
right.
probably would have continued to do a sport. He may not have been happy. He may have resented me. And here it
Mm,
is. I don't know. That could have been the next Bill Gates. And I'm shooting down his dream because, oh, he's tall. He needs to play basketball. So again, it goes back to our value system. We need to encourage our young boys and girls.
right.
Hey, do you want to go into this coding? And here's the thing, the program was free. All of these things are
Right.
free that are out here for us,
Mm,
especially if you come from certain communities, or if you happen to know someone. I'm in higher education, so some people may look at me like, oh, of course you know these things, right? But when it came to that
mhm,
program, it didn't stumble upon me. I happened to be on Facebook, and I saw that one of my friends from grammar school had posted about it, and
mhm,
I'm like, you know what, let me just take a shot and register
mhm.
my son. And he got into the program. So the
Right.
resources are out there. We just have to, again, we have to change our value system. Our boys are
Well, how do
more
we
than
do that? How do we change the culture? How do we make it cool to be a smart guy, cool to be a coder, and not a thug or not urban, not hip hop? And before you answer that question, let me give you a good example of how the culture, kind of thwarts even how we date and we find mates. And
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
this is anecdotal, it's not scientific, I'm not giving you statistics, but I encountered this a lot when I was growing up taking school
Mhm.
seriously. Watch this.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
What I
So let me frame it for the people. This is a dating show, right? It's called the Pineapple Show. And this lady called Melly Monaco, it's cute. She's like the facilitator. She's the host. This young lady, Jalea R, is a is looking for a date, and this guy NS Crisis is a prospective suitor of this young lady, Jalea. So Jalea gets to speak to multiple men, and if she doesn't like them, she says the word pineapple, and that means move on to the next guy. All right, it's like speed dating. So let's see what happens in this conversation.
Hi.
You're reading?
Yeah, I was actually reading. I ship out in a few days, so I was just reading the art of strategy.
Okay.
For the military?
Yeah. So actually, I'm a nuclear physicist for the Navy,
Oh,
so I do that in a few days.
okay.
How old are you?
I am 27. I look a little young. I'm not that young.
Yeah, you look young.
So where do you live?
So I'm actually in the Woodlands, Texas, right now. Right down there by Houston. I'm about 30 minutes away from Houston, so I'm a little close.
Oh, nice. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Um, Man, where do I start? Uh, I like martial arts a lot. I did a bit of pharmacy uh, back when I was a little bit younger, about 3 years ago. I got certified at pharmacy around when I was 17. I didn't really do anything with it. I went to university for a while. I was getting like a business degree, so I have a bachelor's in business. And then I did pharmacy for a little while, for about 3 years, and then got bored. So I was like, let's go see what the military has to offer. Didn't do anything. Um, got my I did my PyCat about a year ago. Got a 96 on that. It goes up to a 99. Got a 96. They offered me nuclear physics, and I was like, why the fuck not? So I went there, and now I ship out in a few days.
Oh, okay, nice. Well, best of luck as you ship out pineapples.
Damn. Why?
Because he literally didn't tell me any qualities about himself. He's just like, I made a 96 on this. I did this. And I feel like I did that at first too. But however, I need a man with some personality.
You felt that quick? You know you didn't have personality?
I don't know why it just stopped. Hold on, we got like a few more seconds.
Okay.
Well, she doesn't really say anything much after that. So,
Yes, I'm really good at reading people.
there you go. Yeah, I'm really good at really reading people. So here's a guy, right, who he's got a bachelor's in business. He's got a history of pharmacy. He's certified in it. At the very least, he could go to a drugstore and work as a pharmacy technician or something to that effect. He's in the military. He's so smart. They're going to train him and give him the certifications to be a nuclear physicist, which means he could leave and go work in power plants. He could
Yep.
go work, nuclear power plants, make $120,000, $150,000. And just because this guy didn't have personality, it, she pineapples him. She moves on to the next guy. Is this not indicative of what we see in the communities? Let's speak about this. How do you feel about what you just saw?
Well, let me just briefly say about my story over the summer, and the rare time I was on a dating app. I'm not going to say which one. And I met this gentleman. He had his associate's degree. I told him I was about to get my doctorate and everything. Conversation was amazing. We talked for a week. We met each other. Things were good. So then 2 days later, the plan was that Saturday we were going to link up and we were going to go to BBQs. He never been before. So I'm like, okay, cool. And he ghosted me. So of course you start to internalize stuff like, okay, like what did I do? Did he not like the way that I looked at the person? Like what's going on? So he reached out to me 2 months later on Instagram because at this point he was blocked. And
Mm,
he sincerely apologized. He's like, no, to be honest with you, I couldn't really afford to go there. I didn't feel like I was on your level. And I'm thinking like, dude, it was just BBQs. Like I could see if I said let's go to like Peter Luger or something. Like it wasn't to me. It wasn't that serious. But he claimed that because of our conversation and everything, I gave him a copy of a book I was reading, and he's like, oh, I never had anyone do that before.
mhm,
And I think because of his background, his dating history, it was like shock for him.
mm,
And we never talked about a relationship. We know, like, to me, I'm like, we didn't even talk about anything other than, you know, being friends, and we talked about things in the Black community and education. And coincidentally, he also had a podcast he was doing and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I thought the conversation was flowing.
Mm.
And yeah, so it is definitely real out here. And it's
But
crazy because
but
one of my coworkers told me
mhm,
last week, she was like, congratulations on your degree.
mm,
But you know this is a gift and a curse, right? When it comes to
mm.
dating. And I was like, girl, I already know. You
Yeah,
didn't have to tell me.
but culturally, it's different. It's supposed to be different
Yeah,
because men are, a woman usually is looking up.
yeah,
A man is usually the one that doesn't mind looking down. And when I say down, I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but a man is typically doesn't care about a woman's accomplishments. Like, you could be impressed, you could, because you're looking at it like, I'm a breadwinner. If she's a breadwinner, we just gonna make a lot of money together. But I'm the one who feels as though I'm going to support this woman, right?
yeah,
So he doesn't care if she's a doctor or working in fast food. If she tickles his interest, it's usually okay. But in this video, here's a woman who, I got the backstory on this. I didn't pull it for the show because I don't want to get hung up on one topic, right, or one video.
yeah.
But it's widely available. She's a model. Okay. Obviously, she's not rich and famous. We don't know who she is, right? So she's a model. That's how she makes her living. And she came back and she basically dug deeper and said, I felt like he didn't have any swagger and any personality. And she used the word swagger in her rebuttal, right? So how are we at to a point in our society and our culture, which you don't see this in any other culture? Not in white culture, Asian culture, not even a Latino culture, which we usually move hand in hand, the Latinos and blacks.
Yeah.
How do we get to the point in this culture where a woman is afraid to deal with a man that could possibly change her reality? I'm not saying be rich. I mean, his education and his drive literally could change generations, because she has kids with with this man. Those kids are going to get daddy's values.
Absolutely.
So whatever trajectory her family was on, she could change that course with him, a man who valued education,
Yeah.
who's 27 years old and still not done learning. How did we get to that point?
That's a really good question. The other thing is too, sometimes people aren't ready to have that conversation with themselves. And it
Mm,
usually takes, and I hate to say it, running through people who have broken their heart, left them a single mother. And I hate to sound stereotypical, but it's like that's usually how it is. And then they realize, like, oh, wait a minute, I remember that dude, the 27-year-old from that
mm,
dating show. Let me see if he's still available. And
mm,
it's sad, but even look at Sierra and Russell Wilson, for example.
mhm,
How many people were like, oh, she is just using him for his money, and oh, he's a lame. Oh, she
mm.
did better with Future. And we're like, okay, wait a minute. Future has about 10 kids, could be
Yes,
more.
yes, could be.
He openly raps about, how he treats women and drugs and all these other, lean and whatever else. And that's okay. But then here it
Right,
is, Russell Wilson, he's the polar opposite. And
right,
people fail to realize that Sierra said, look, I had to do my prayer. I had to get myself together. They waited a year before they were intimate. Like, she had to work on herself so
right,
that way she could be on his level, and they're at where they are now.
right.
So it's sad, but it's like, yeah, they rather have the swag, they rather have the bad boy until
Mm,
he breaks their heart numerous times.
mhm,
And now, when they're jaded and
mhm,
bitter, now they want to go back to a Russell Wilson. So,
right.
it's sad, but it's also what we see in our community.
Mm,
And in a sense, we mimic what we see.
mm. So if I made you, because I'm going to be president eventually, I keep telling people,
Into existence, yes.
I don't know if V Radio's still in the building. He keeps telling me to run for office. I always say no. But I'm going to end up being president, right? And I make you the Secretary of Education. And I
Absolutely.
give you a mission. And I say, I'm tired of seeing my community in this state. Right. I'm tired of seeing young men idolize LeBron James and all these rappers. I can't even think of their names. They're so not important to me. Chief Keef, that comes to mind. The Chief
I
Keefs
agree.
and all this stuff. I'm
Oh,
tired of idolizing. I want them to idolize businessmen. I want them to idolize, creators and inventors.
yeah.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to change the culture?
I think for one thing, I would love to put more funding into trio programs. So if we could do
What's the
more
trio
things,
program?
It could be your Educational Opportunity Fund program, Student Support Services, McNair, Talent Search, Upward Bound. Like those are programs where the different ones, the shorter the long, some of them target students who are in sixth through eighth grade. Some of them target students in high school. And then you
Mm,
have other ones that assist them while they're in college. And this is
mm,
primarily for your first generation, low income, marginalized students. So
mm,
as long as they're under a certain financial threshold, they're the
mhm.
first in their family to go to college. So as long as both of their parents didn't obtain a college degree,
Okay.
they're fine. They'll assist them. And with the EOF program in particular, now different states may call it different things because it's only
Mhm,
in New York, New Jersey, PA, and certain parts of California. So
mhm,
many places probably call it different things. But when I worked in the EOF program, we recruited students in high school, usually their senior year, and we had a summer bridge program to help them because of the fact that, let's say, maybe their SAT scores weren't up to par, or maybe they wouldn't have matriculated into the university any other way have they not complete the summer bridge program. And it
mhm,
gives them, like, your basic math, writing, study group. We took them on trips. There were many students who had never been to New York if it weren't for that trip, or who had
mm,
never been to a museum. So it also gives them that cultural aspect and community service. And then
right.
once they get into the university, not only do they get a state grant, regular students get up to 5 years. If you're in the EOF program, you get up to 6. They also assist them when they go to graduate school. They pair them with a mentor or a coach, whichever you want to call them. And then also, they can take summer courses. So that way, instead of graduating in, let's say, that 6 years I just mentioned, maybe now they
Right.
can graduate in 3 and 4. So that would be my number one thing, is to put more funding towards these programs so that way it can assist them. And here's the other thing, also assist their parents.
Mm,
And that's one thing that a lot of these institutions don't do. And that's one of the things that I also found out in my research. A lot of these institutions, they don't do anything to get the parents involved.
right.
And people fail to realize that with continuing generation students, which are those
Mm,
students whose parents, grandparents went to college, they're
mhm,
having college conversations at the table.
right.
And and the more that they're involved, that parental involvement is very important because the student will also be more committed to that institution.
Right.
So it definitely starts with the parents, but again, we need to put more funding into those programs to assist them, and again, assist their parents. So if their parents want to finish high school or go to college themselves, they're
Mhm.
able to do that and be sufficient and help them increase their social capital.
I agree with that 1000%. I'm going to play a video about teachers talking about getting parents engaged in their children's education. But what you said something profound, that parents that have college educations, they're talking to their children about college from a very young age. And I see myself doing that with my kids.
Yeah,
Mommy's doing that with our kids. My daughter, my oldest daughter, who's 14 right now, 15 this year, but 14 right now, she just went to homecoming in Clark, Atlanta.
wonderful.
And, she has a cousin that's in college there. And, when I thought about it, I was talking to mommy. I was like, you know what? Because I was joking. I was like, oh, you going to party. Don't be partying and going crazy. She going with her adult aunt. Her adult aunt is like 50 something, right? I was just joking with her. But like, I'm talking to mommy. I'm like, yo, it's really good because that she goes, because even though it's a party atmosphere, of course, she's not doing any partying. She's a little girl. She's with an elder aunt. She gets to see that tradition. She gets to see tons of black people who have college degrees coming back to this space and celebrating and meeting their friends they haven't seen in a long time. She gets to take part in activities that they do in these colleges, like the stepping contest and the parade and all this stuff. This entire event is centered around education.
That's
It
right.
may seem fun at this point. You may be having a good time. You see people twerking, you see people doing this, that, and the third, but they're there for because of education, not
Yeah.
because of a holiday or a religious festival or folklore. No, they're there because of education. So,
Yes.
those conversations are had. My kids are telling, I don't know what may happen in the future. They're still very young. But they're telling me, I want to go to this school. I want to go to that school. This is their future. They're not saying, oh, I want to be a doctor and a lawyer, which is good too, but
Yeah.
they're actually thinking about the next step to get them to where they want to go, you know? But let me play this video right here. And I had mixed feelings when I saw this video. I want to get your opinion on it. Let's get it in here.
parents have to be accountable at their child's school. The teachers cannot raise your child.
At what point do personal responsibility come in? Because we can't do everything.
That foundation starts at home before they walk out that door.
What we do as parents in the school, it matters.
Our parents sometimes feel threatened by just coming into the school.
Some of it is that parents are just afraid.
There's a class divide in schools, and so we service children that live in poverty. We have the college degrees, and we're the middle class people. And so there's a certain intimidation that comes along with that.
I've always said in education it's a three-part stool. There's like parent involvement, student involvement, and teachers.
We have to meet our parents where they are. We have to invest in them emotionally and socially.
It's not assuming that everyone knows how to be a good parent. Sometimes what people are doing is really the best and what they know how to do.
We can't have this mentality of we're up here and they're down here when in fact we were down here just like them. I was a single mom. There were times where my lights were cut off. Guess what? There were times where I didn't have gas. I am just like you, and I can connect with you, and there's no judgment in what you're going through.
When parents are invited and they don't show up, it's a great opportunity to reflect to see if we've opened the door enough for them to actually come.
All right, so when I look at that video, right, and this video is made by a group that's progressive, like they're trying to talk about ways that they feel like they can get parents more engaged. But for me, it feels a little condescending. It's almost like we're gonna go down to where you are, and I get it because the kids are involved. So I guess you got to do what you got to do. But it's almost accepting the fact that some of these parents are deficient parents, rather than challenging them to rise up. It seems like they're kind of like accepting that those parents are failures and trying their best to reach down as low as they can and try and uplift them. I don't know, save the kid. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I mean, at the end of the day, we have to look at, like I had said before, about the intergenerational trauma that
Mhm.
plagues some of our communities, and unfortunately, those are some of the things that you have to do. You have to
Mm,
meet the parent where they are, because at the end of the day, it's to help the student.
mm,
Because if, again, those conversations of college, and I saw someone had put in the comments section, college is overrated, and I'm gonna get to that comment in a second. But
mhm,
because of the fact that those conversations aren't had, the thing that people fail to realize, and again, this is going back to my research,
mhm,
about the same percentage of black males that are in college right now is around the same as the 1970s.
damn.
So you have to ask yourself, well, where do you think we are? So if you think that we're in a better place, then okay. And if you think that we're not in a good place, then you have to ask yourself, when you
Right.
say that college is overrated, let's dissect that a little bit. When you look
I'll put
into
that comment up right here too. You want to read it?
um you could go ahead.
So Beyond a Badge in the book. What's up, Beyond a Badge? Appreciate you for coming through. He said college is very overrated, especially for so many kids who don't even use their education for their career. And and then guess who's paying for it? I know many very successful who never went to, I think it cut it off. I'm gonna just read it right here. It says who
Mhm.
never went to college. Um, yeah, I kind of disagree with that too, but I'll let you keep answering it. Go ahead.
The thing that I'm going to give this example, when we look at the medical and healthcare industry, there are a lot of expectant mothers who complained about, when they were in the delivery room, they complained about pain, and their calls were unheard.
Hmm.
There were many people who said that, hey, I went in for one thing in an emergency room, and when I told them this is where the pain was, they ignored me. And you hear those sentiments often, which is why a lot of people, unless they're at grandparents' age and maybe a little older, are a little reluctant to go to the hospital, because of the simple fact that they feel like we're not heard. So when you look at the history of that, that's because so many of us have gone to hospitals, emergency rooms, all of these things. Well, wait a minute, let me backtrack a little bit. A lot of us were experimented on. And this is going back into slavery. This is good. You know what I mean? Like, look at the history of hysterectomies and how that came about. Let's look, I mean, if we really want to break that down. But
Hmm.
to get back to where we are today, we have so many of us who are going into these emergency rooms and these hospitals to get treatment, and they look at us as if black people can tolerate pain.
Mm-hmm.
And you can Google that, you can look that up. That was a common thing that
Mm-hmm.
people thought in the medical industry. Oh, we can handle pain. Oh, we're fine. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we have, so many women, unfortunately, who are giving birth and they're passing away, unfortunately. They're dying on the table because of the fact that they're not being properly taken care of. So, guess what? If more of us went to college and we
Mm-hmm.
went to medical school, who do you think will be helping those people? Who do you
Mm-hmm.
think will be changing the trajectory of those numbers?
Mm-hmm.
If more of us went to school and became lawyers, we're so quick to talk about how it's so many of our black and brown males who are
Mm-hmm.
sitting and they don't have the proper lawyers. So a lot of them are sitting in jail for these low offenses. But guess what? If we became lawyers, now we can defend them because we know how it is. We know the history of how they treat our people. So I hear what people are saying when they're saying it's overrated. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I look at the fact that, okay, well, what's the alternative? Because what we've been doing hasn't been working.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we come to the table and say, "Oh, college is overrated," is this and that. The first thing I always ask people is, "Do you have a degree? Did you ever set foot on a college campus?" Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing that I'm finding. Also, people are
Right.
quick to say, "Oh, college isn't for me. I don't need to go to school." Okay, have you even gone to a community college? Have you looked into a trade school? And most of the time, I'll bet
Mm-hmm.
$100 on it. They say, "No, I haven't." So how do you know what's for you if you haven't tried it? We have to stop looking at there's so many people who are in debt. There's so many people who are in debt and they can't, get a career in their field and all these other things. And the thing is you have to stop looking at everyone else's situation
Mm-hmm.
and you have to deal with it on an individual level. I've had many students, for example, one of my friends, he has a friend who was a psychology major, and
Mm-hmm.
he is getting paid buku bucks to
Mm-hmm.
work at Wakefern, which is what is it, like part of ShopRite, because
Yeah.
of the psychology of where food is placed in the store. So,
Yeah.
for example, you know how when you go to get milk, where is milk usually placed?
In the right next to the orange juice and all that stuff.
But
Yeah.
it's all the way in the back,
In
right?
the back. Yeah.
Psychologically, that's the reason. Because when you have to go through the store, guess
Mm.
what? You're looking at all the things that are on sale. You're looking at things that you probably didn't even
Mm.
think of. And then what if you're hungry? Now you're over here buying $50 worth of stuff
That's
that you didn't
true.
intend to come for. There's a psychologist behind
Yeah.
that.
If you
So
had the
you
bread
do
and milk in the front, you just grab the bread, milk, and
exactly.
leave.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
not have to necessarily major in psychology and become a
Mm-hmm.
counselor. You do
Right.
not have to major in English and become a teacher.
Right.
There are people who are working at Google who have a communications degree, do a
Right.
non-coding position. So it's like we have to get out of this bubble
Mm-hmm.
of, oh, okay, you're a communications major. There's no money in that. What do you do?
Well,
Broadcast
I
journalism?
have a different take on this, and
Okay.
it's basic. What I took, first of all, I my degree is in criminal justice and human services, a social worker degree, right? And what I got from college is not so much what it would give me towards my career, even though I use those things in my career every day. Okay, it's the fact that it opened me to the world.
That's
All
right.
right, I wouldn't have picked up Plato on my own and read it. All right. I wouldn't have, read about Greek mythology, which is something that interests me on a college level. I love architecture. I wouldn't have taken a class on, medieval cathedral architecture. I've taken class in this. I wouldn't have learned some of the true history of African leaders if I wasn't in a college class to guide me through that wealth of knowledge that's so hard to piece together on your own, but
Yep.
much easier when you have a curriculum that lays it out and plans it out for you. I would not have learned how to write as well as I do, which gets me accolades in my job, if I did not take multiple English and speech classes. I'm not the best speaker and presenter. I'm still learning, but I probably wouldn't be able to do half the job I do now if I didn't take speech in college. It's like you learn so many other things. I love Japanese culture because I always watch anime. Even to this day, I watch anime. When I'm done with
Yeah.
this live, I'm going to watch anime. Yes, I'm a almost 40-year-old nerd. Guess what? I took a Japanese study history class on the shoguns, which I still remember to this day. So I took a class on Judaism, and then a class on Christianity. I took a
I
class
did
on
one on Hinduism.
metaphysics.
Yep.
Metaphysics, when we talked about the first mover, we talked about the existence of God. We just pondered that for a whole semester. I took a class on ethnomusicology where I learned about music from Europe to Africa to India to America. This
Yeah.
is what college truly does for you. It makes you a worldly person. It's
It
not
does.
so much is it going to teach you exactly how to create, the next Google search engine or, heal somebody. It gives you the foundation to be a person who is capable of having empathy for others and seeing things through other cultural lenses. So when I
Absolutely.
go, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent, and I'll end it here. But when I go and I'm dealing with an Indian family or a Chinese family,
Yes.
and they're not speaking the best English, I don't look at them like they're lesser than thou. Just like just because they don't speak good English. Because a lot of people, oh, you don't speak the language, you must be dumb. I'm looking at it like, okay, the reason why that wife is not talking to me is not because she hates the cops, because culturally the man speaks first. You know what I'm saying? Like these are the things you get exposed to that make you a better professional, a better human being, and you learn that in college, and you can learn it other places too. You can learn it in a school of hard knocks, but the cheapest and the easiest way is in college because hard knocks sometimes have some serious consequences. But please go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. I was just going to say it also teaches you a lot of transferable skills. And
Mhm.
the other thing too that I'm seeing in a lot of students, especially first generation students, is once they get on campus, they don't engage in a lot of these help seeking behaviors that will help them, persist and go to graduation, whether they're in a trio program, an EOF program, or whatever. And that's the other thing that you have to ask these students, because first of all, they're more than capable of doing the work. Let me just say that. But a lot
Mhm.
of times, like, perfect example, I had a student that I met with this month, and I'm looking at her progress online. She's not doing that well.
Mhm.
And one of the professors like, oh, I'm afraid that I may have to fail her. So when I see stuff like that, I always do a midpoint check-in for all of my students in the college. So what I do is just to see how they are. How are you doing? How are you adjusting? I don't care if you're a first year freshman or if you're a senior, because at the end of the day, the adjustment on different levels is different. So the student, she's a first time freshman, she comes to me and we speak, and she's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to pass. I don't know if this is for me. And this is her first semester. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is your first semester. If you bomb, no, it's not right, but I mean, it's okay. You have the next semester. And I explained to her what will happen. And then I asked her, I said, just curious, have you ever been to the Accessibility Resource Center? And she's like, what is that? And I told her what services they provide. And she said, oh, you know what? I actually do have an IEP. And I said, oh, thank you for disclosing that to me. You don't even have to go into specifics. The Accessibility Resource Center is there to help you. So if you have your documentation on file, and again, legally, I do not need to know what that is, we can give you extra time in your tests. If you need a note taker, if let's say you can't take notes and you need someone to record it and they play, all of these different services that are out there. And that's what these students need. And again, that was the purpose of the trio programs, to give the students those mentors and coaches to help guide them along the way. And here's the other thing, I can't speak about what happened 10 years ago, but now we're getting to a place where you do not have to leave college in a buku bucks of debt. So
Right.
when everybody goes to that
I was going to
jugular,
address that. I was going to
yes,
address
there's
that.
so
Yeah.
many different programs out there, so many different institutions where, okay, if you want to go back to school, and let's say that you're a single mom, and you make, let's say, under 45,000 a year. Let's say that
Mhm.
your family as a whole makes under 65,000. Like all of these different things to
Yeah.
target, people in marginalized communities. You can go
Right.
to school for free,
But
and
even
instead,
aside from
Mhm.
that, he said $100,000 in debt. I'm gonna put it up here. Beyond Bass said he's fine with people furthering education, but basically, in sum and total, if you get 100,000 in debt, don't cry to him, and don't expect his tax dollars to pay for it. Nobody's getting $100,000 in debt in undergraduate school.
Exactly.
That's people who are going to be doctors and lawyers. All right, and this just doesn't happen. Or you go on like some serious MBA program. You know,
Exactly.
that doesn't happen. Undergraduate is from 10 to max, and 50,000 meaning you go into an Ivy League school. And if you go to Ivy League school, you're guaranteeing you're going to have a six-figure life because the name of the school alone is going to put you ahead of the class, so that you're actually investing in yourself. If somebody told me I had to take $100,000 in debt and they could guarantee me a Harvard degree, I'm take it, because whether you like education or not, I can take that Harvard degree to any single job and they'll hire me.
Absolutely.
Even if I don't even know I don't even know how to spell my whole name. I paid people to take every class in Harvard just by the fact that I went to Harvard. It's going to pay itself back, right?
No, you're
But
absolutely
everybody else is paying between $10,000 and $50,000, right? That's
yep,
it, right? And number two, nobody's tax dollars is paying for people's education. You got to either pay or take out a loan or you get scholarships. Now, because Biden, for the first time in 100 years,
yep,
decides he want to forgive people's student loans up to 20,000, but most people just get 10,000. That's a different story. It is what it is. But I don't want the narrative to make it seem like it's always been that people have been paying for people's education. That's
exactly.
not the case. The only program that I know of that ever paid or forgave debt from somebody's education is if you have a college debt and you're a police officer, military, a government, a federal agent, there's a program that will forgive those loans after like 10 or 15 years of you making every single one of your payments on time. Then they'll forgive it because you're a public servant. Other
That's
than that, it's never happened before. And there's one more thing that somebody said that I want to address. They said that, oh, okay, the Alabaster said, there's also the fact that many colleges treat trade schools like they're lesser. That needs to change. I don't really know about that, but what I do believe is whenever I talk about college, and maybe I should be more clear about this, because how the hell would you know? I'm talking about trade schools too, because we need electricians, we need
that's right.
plumbers, and those are great professions. We need masons, we need welders.
Yep.
That's to me, that's good night, my sweetheart. To me, that's continuing your education. If you're going to an electrical school for 18 months and you now are mastered being an electrician, you're a professional. You've gotten advanced training. It's no different than going to get a master's degree in business so you could be a better businessman. So
Yep.
I include trade schools and I think that they're amazing and I think they should be expanded. And I agree that college may not be for everybody, but I just simply think that's because you probably haven't found the right thing in college that interests you to study. But I'll give that to the naysayers. College may not be for everybody, but we should also expand trade schools and give that as a viable option. Because one last thing, I'm sorry, Dr.
Yeah,
Cherry,
of course.
I
Go ahead.
apologize. It's kind of my show, right? I'm just joking.
That's right.
I'm just joking.
Please smack down. That's
Let's let's be serious. We got a lot of successful people in this chat, and I love them. I love you guys. We're not always going to agree on things, and I think that's why you guys are here.
yeah.
But your story is not everybody's story. Not everybody's going to have those opportunities. Not everybody's going to be as lucky as you are to achieve the things that you've achieved. Look at our economy. Our economy is no longer a manufacturing economy. The jobs out there oftentimes require you to have an advanced degree. You're either going to be in a professional class with a degree or the service class. And the service class doesn't pay that much. You know what I'm saying? Like everything is tech. What are you doing in tech if with a high school degree unless you're a master coder? And if you like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, who didn't finish college, but you were gifted to know coding on a master level,
hmm
that's another anomaly. How many people have those gifts, man? So people constantly say, "Oh, we don't need college. We don't need college. We don't need college." You know, like my police officers in the room where I don't have my degree and people I don't. Well, guess what? Your department doesn't care if you have a degree. A lot of the departments starting to change it. My department requires you to have at minimum an associate's degree to be a police officer. Many departments that don't require it, they actually give bonuses to people who come in with bachelor's degree. That's the way of the future.
It
So
is.
many people are saying that police officers are unprofessional. We don't got the brightest people, and that's why people getting killed and all that stuff. I disagree. I think there's a lot of good cops without college degrees, but that's the direction that society is going. They want to make policing on par with these other professions like lawyer, etc. They already do it in Europe. In Europe, in many of those countries, you have to go to their academy for 3-4 years.
Mm.
They're not 6-month academies like in America. Some of them require you to go for years. They'll pay you and everything. So I don't know. I give the floor back to you. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. And I'm glad that you brought up the associates, because the thing that people fail to realize is that even with these community colleges, if you go there, let's say you do your 2 years, your financial aid covers it, you get your associate's degree, you can matriculate into a 4-year public school and you can get your bachelor's for free. And guess what?
Right.
If you enroll in a dual program, by the time you're finished, you can have your bachelor's and your master's degree. So now you have three. And again, you're coming out in a minimal amount of debt. And again, I can't speak for what happened 10 years ago, but these are
Right.
the things that are going on now.
Right.
So once again, that's why when and here's the other thing too. And again, this is in my research. People who have advanced degrees, whether it's your associates or your doctorate, that also lowers the number of domestic violence,
Hmm.
child abuse, malnutrition, all of these different things, because now you have these advanced degrees, which means that you can put your foot in the door to do other things. We're
Right.
getting to a place where, like you said, this is the future. As Malcolm X said, education is the passport to the future. I have that in my email. Like that is very important because if you go to your McDonald's, you go to any of these other places, they have it where it's automated. There
Mm.
is no person, or for the, some of the part is not a lot of people that are there taking your order. You're
Right.
punching a machine. Or,
Right.
it's like all these different things that is going into technology because people are like, oh, you want to raise the minimum wage? Okay, no problem. But to
Mm.
make way for that, they have to get rid of some of these jobs. But the thing that will never change are the people who have to fix those machines. The people that have to come there and get the money and count it and all of these different things, those professions are still going to be there.
Right.
So I definitely agree with what you said. It's like, even if you don't think college is for you, okay, that's great. But again, what's the alternative? So when
Mm.
you give the examples you gave, even like a P. Diddy, I think he dropped out of school, if not his junior, it was like his senior year when he was in college.
Right.
Okay, if you have the same work ethic as P. Diddy, because granted, his father died when he was young, didn't leave him, 5,000 or $5 million to start a business. He did this from scratch. If you have the same work ethic as a P. Diddy or, someone else that dropped out of college or didn't do it, then by all means, more power to you. But the problem that we're seeing is that the thing that people fail to realize, a lot of our young black boys aren't graduating from high school at the same level as their counterparts or as black women, let alone going to college. So now that's another issue that needs to be addressed if we
Right.
look at these statistics. So I always tell people, okay, if you say college isn't for you, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But what's the alternative? Tell me what your plan is. Let's have a conversation because we're seeing trends in these marginalized communities and things need to change.
Right.
Like even in my community, there was a star athlete from a public high school that was
Right.
shot and killed. He was shot 4 times in the head, which makes you think that yeah, it was intentional. It was purposeful. But
Right.
why did that have to happen?
Right.
These are the things that we need to address. So, okay, you don't want to go to college, you don't think college is for you. Okay, that's great. What other options are we going to give these young people? Because they're
That's
listening to those, even if that's not the majority, they're
right.
listening to that because, again, they're first generation. They don't have
Right.
anyone in their family telling them the latter. So they're listening
Right.
to you when you say college isn't for you, don't go to college, getting into all this stuff. Okay. And then they're going out here to the streets.
And,
They're not going
that
to the
actually that's going to segue us into our next topic. Well, not topic, but like data set. I'm going to read out some of these statistics on violence. And I think a lot of people need to understand
yeah,
like the conversation we're having may not be applicable for your community, especially if you're Caucasian or Asian or whatever. Like this is a conversation with what deals with the black community. So it may be advantageous. There might be generational wealth. There might be certain opportunities that somebody in a different community might be able to say, oh, you don't need to go to college because in our community, these options are still available.
yeah,
But what are the options that are available in these inner cities where these young men are dying like crazy? And we're going to talk about that. But I want to
sure.
just make reference to one comment that Beyond the Badge said, I love you, buddy, but we having a good conversation. I disagree with you. He said, where do you think all these free programs come from? Ain't nothing free, especially when it comes to college. Now, I think he's referring to a lot of these programs you were talking about. You don't even have to answer it because we're going to segue. I'm going to answer it for you, Dr.
Okay.
Cherry. You know, I don't feel like any American should have this type of conversation, make those type of comments, and I'll tell you why. Because we so easily give our money away to different countries and different conflicts and all that different stuff. Let's stop giving our money away to all these other folks, and then we could talk about what we can't give ourselves.
Absolutely.
Nobody complains when hundreds of billions of dollars are shipped over to Europe. I can't say what country because apparently, if you speak out against that war, YouTube and PayPal and all these other people aren't going to pay you, right? But nobody complains when we're going to send that our hard-earned American money that we could be using to pay down our debt. If you're conservative, we could be paying down our debt that's giving us rampant inflation right now. Nobody complains when we buy missiles, or rather just give them cash and hope they buy missiles
That's right.
in those conflicts. Nobody complains when some of our closest allies who have booming economies receive billions a year from us. Nobody complains. But the moment we talk about investing in our youth, not giving tax cuts to adults, not giving welfare money to adults, literally investing in the future of our economy.
Yep.
People always say, well, we're going to get the money from. Well, I want to make sure that some of you folks are against all of these expenditures that prop up regimes that we don't even know, we don't have nothing in common with. But I digress. Let me go to the numbers, man. Pull this up right here real quick. Oh, it fit perfectly. Excellent.
Yeah, it did.
All right. So let me scroll up right here. So I'm gonna scroll up to the top so people know. This is readily available numbers. I live in New York State. I'm familiar with this. You know what I'm saying? So you guys know I just downloaded the crime report from January 1st to December 31st, 2021 from the New York City Police Department. This is one of those departments that give you all the data you could ever hope for. A lot of departments like to hide this stuff. This is just what it is. So just like criminal mischief, I'm gonna head my way down to murder. So this is the statistics for murder. I'm gonna have to unfortunately move it over because now the way that the page is set up, yeah, there we go. You can't really see it. All right, well you can see the first part, which is victims.
Mm.
So 67% of the victims of murder in New York City, the five boroughs with 8 million people, richest city in the world, 67% of the murders are African Americans.
Mm.
5.9% of those victims of murder are white people. 23.7% are Latino. Now, you guys can't see this column, unfortunately, so I'm going to read it out for you. And of course, this is numbers that anybody can find, so you can know that I'm not lying to you.
Yep.
The suspects of murder, 63.9% of the suspects of murder in New York City, the people who are pulling the trigger and killing people, are black people. 4.8% of those people are white people. 28.5% are Hispanic. Is this not an epidemic?
I agree.
When we start, this is different statistics for sexual assault. I want to go down to felonious assault. Now, felonious assault is oftentimes considered attempted murder. All right. So 45% of the people who were almost killed in New York City, black people.
Mm.
11% white people. 34% Hispanics. When we get to the suspects, 53% of the people who almost killed somebody. So like 62% of the 62% was the people who actually killed people and they were black. 53% of the people who tried to kill somebody but weren't successful of that were African Americans. 7% were Caucasian and 32% was Latino.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at this and we say, what is the common denominator? What is the thing that these folks have in common that put them in this situation? I think it's a lack of education.
I agree
I
with
think
you.
it's a lack of family structure. I think it's a lack of religion, a lack of morals.
I agree with you. And we need to put more money into these education systems because the other thing was, like you had mentioned, we have money for, war and everything else. But when it comes down to education, we already knew about the inequities, but then once the pandemic happened, that's
Right.
when we really saw the digital divide, We saw like I don't know if you remember the report about the two young kids that were at the McDonald's by themselves because they had to do their when school was virtual, they had to do school. That was the only place they could get Wi-Fi
Right.
because they their parents couldn't afford internet, or it was just all of these different things that we saw. Like, look at how long it took for some of the public schools to get a laptop or a tablet of some sort to students so that way they can connect and do
Right.
their online school while we were in the pandemic. Like, certain communities don't deal with that problem. They don't have
Right.
to wait for the school to give it to them. They
Hmm.
already have it in their home.
That's a fact.
I was fortunate enough, to have those things in my home for my son. But I
Right.
know at one point it was like, okay, we had to wait. I think it was like an additional week. This is when I think he was like I think it was seventh grade. We had to wait an additional week until all the kids got them because the ones who didn't have them in their home, they had to wait for the school to get the approval from the
Hmm.
state to get the additional tablets to assist
Right.
those who didn't have it. So it's like, people are so up in arms about this whole, student loan forgiveness and college, this, and that. And it's like, okay, but again, what is the alternative? Because we need to do something within these communities.
Right.
It's sad to say, look at those numbers. So it's not just you and I speaking from our feelings. We're looking at
Right.
these statistics. And, again, my research and polling people and
Right.
speaking to different people who completed college, and I spoke to those who didn't persist. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, what is the issue? What is the common denominator? And it's, we need to do more to, get the value out there about education and post-secondary education.
Right. And V Radio actually corrected me inside of the comment. He didn't correct me, but he made me aware of it. I forgot to say the culture of violence, and that's big. I always say that, and I think that's another issue that adds to that violence. But like, I don't understand why so many people are reticent against this whole notion of getting an education. It's
Yeah.
like, if you can go without getting an education and be successful, great, good for you. Nobody's saying that you have to get an education. What educated people are saying is, hey, listen, this is how it changed my life. Like, you
Absolutely.
know, I know where I came from. I know the experiences I had. I know the type of person I was before and after I got an education. So I'm going to testify to it. If you're somebody who's never gotten a higher education, you don't feel you need it, then great, no problem, But like, it seems like people get on the defensive, like, oh, education, who needs that? It sucks,
Exactly.
trash.
But once again, did they even step foot on a college campus?
That's another thing.
Did
But
you
I
even
think
try?
I think politics is injecting itself in it because we hear so much about, you know, colleges being these liberal bastions that indoctrinating children, etc. And the schools that I went to, I didn't experience that. I went to
I didn't either.
St. John's University in Queens, New York, which is a pretty decent school. Never felt that. And then I finished school in SUNY school, Empire College, and I also never felt it there as well. So how do you feel about that? Do you see liberal indoctrination and purple haired brainwashing happening on your college campus where you work?
No, I don't see that. And even with the courses that they offer, if you want those types of courses, guess what? You register for them. And if you don't want them, you don't register for them. And the beautiful thing also with, student activities or student development, whatever the department is called on that campus, if
Hmm.
there's something that you want, whether it's a faith-based organization or it's something that, whatever it is, you can go there, say, hey, as a student, this is what I want to start. They'll give you a budget. You can recruit some students, get yourself an e-board. Like, you can make it happen. So it's not these whole, liberal thing. They're telling them not to stand for the pledge of, like, no, they're not indoctrinating anybody.
Right.
It's more of a, once you step foot on college, they consider you to be an adult. So
Right.
there is no, okay, these are the classes you're taking every semester until you graduate. It's, okay, what is your major? Okay, these are the suggested courses. And then
What
of
you
course you have
we
electives.
suggest you take it. This is what we
Exactly.
suggest, but you can take whatever you want.
Exactly. And then there are
Yeah.
electives. And here's the other
Mhm.
thing I tell people all the time, instead of taking random electives, why don't you take enough so you can get a certificate? So
Right.
now you can have the psychology degree and also have a certificate in business management. Or
Right.
you can do whatever it is that you want to do. The world is your oyster. It
Right.
literally is. And for the comment about, schools and free is the tax dollars, no, sweetie, that's not the case. When you get into some of these programs that I had mentioned, it once you complete the program, and that's the kicker, you got to complete the program, they give you this funding because it comes from the state. That's what's allotted. For the Department of Education, they allot certain programs with a certain amount of funding so that they can assist, students from marginalized communities. It's
Yeah.
not coming from your tax dollars. This is what's allotted. So, I think that's also the misconception, no offense, but when people are trying to put this a nice way, when people are unfamiliar, let me say that. When people are unfamiliar with certain things when it comes to post secondary education, they start these assumptions. And you know what happens when you assume. So
Yeah,
my
because,
thing is, mhm,
but Dr. Cherry, it's like, okay, you could learn coding because coding is really not hard, and if you're like really into that culture, you
mhm,
can get that, and you don't need. But who's designing the next LED TV without a engineering doctorate, PhD? Like, who's creating the next cancer treatment? Unless like this stuff is not happening outside of laboratories with highly educated people who are in school. Like I just don't get that. It's just not sitting well with me. How people just like screw education. It's like it may not be for you.
absolutely.
And believe me, I'm also when I say education, I'm looking at trade school on the same level
Yep.
as
And
college. That's
community
me.
college,
And community
I like
college
to
too.
see
So
that as well.
how many people truly can make a life in 2022 America based solely on a high school diploma? And you're not working for the government.
I agree with you. And for
Some of you, that's your story. Some of you were able to break that mold, but you are more of a minority than African Americans. You know?
absolutely.
Like you're literally a fraction of a percentage because we just don't have that type of market anymore. We don't have that type of
Absolutely.
market.
And even for the comment in the chat about it, the funding coming from taxes. Okay, let's say for sake of conversation, what you're saying is correct. That it's coming from the taxes. But do you know what percentage actually goes towards education? Like I really want to know if they know that, if they know that, because between war and everything else, all of that eats up the money and nobody seems to say anything. Like you said, billions of dollars were sent over to a certain place. Did anyone bat an eye? Did anyone say anything? But then the moment we start talking about education and educating our people so we can lower these crime rates and so we can have, we can enhance our social capital, now all of a sudden people are up in arms. So once again, I ask you, what are your options? What are your suggestions? If that's not where you want your tax dollars to go, then please tell me what percentage actually goes to education. Because if you saw how little went into these public schools in particular, you would not be saying the things that you're saying.
I'd much rather give a scholarship to a kid and fund a STEM program to get a young boy into or young girl into building robots and coding than paying for welfare for generations
Yeah.
for that kid's mother and then that kid and then his kid. I'd rather do that. I'd rather make that one small investment to create a citizen that will actually give back towards our economy than just take care of a person because they're not smart enough to take care of themselves. I don't know, man.
No,
And
I
and,
agree
and,
with
and
you.
we're and we're looking at these numbers, and we're specifically talking about the black community. That's what the title says. Can education save the black community? Not the Asian community, Latino community, or white community. We're looking at these numbers of black people dying and killing. And it seems like this murder death is intersecting with lack of education
No, you're right. And
and opportunity.
when you look at other cultures, especially, the Hispanic community, their parents are literally doing back-breaking work. So
Yes.
that way their kids can go to college and become that doctor or become that
Right.
teacher or whatever it is, and they don't bat an eye because
Asians
they
too.
want them, yes, because they want them to have a better life than what they had, because they know back in their home country where they were from what the alternative would be.
Right.
And that's a reason, and that's one of the reasons why, it's different, because when you think about it, there's not that many black males that are in college. Now, of course, if you look at those that are like, predominantly STEM, like let's say a Stevens Institute or NJIT, yes, those
Right.
numbers are a little different. But I'm talking about in general, when you look at these private or public colleges, there are more black women, Hispanic females, white males. Like it's a bunch of them that are on campus, and it's not that many of our black and brown males, to the point where colleges and universities are actually spearheading initiatives, literally Black and Latino male initiative, Black and
Mhm.
Hispanic male initiative, all these different initiatives to get them on campus and to assist them and to get them resources so that way that they finish. Because we're acting as if so many of our black males are going to college and finish it. No, we
Mhm.
got to rewind a little bit. They're not graduating from high school, let alone graduate, even going to college. We need to change those numbers. We need to do something to change the trajectory of their lives,
Mhm.
and that's something that we're not focused on.
Right. So I want to address a few things. A good point, T. I want to address a few things. So Sierra Vetro says, "But all kids need help, not one. Need help, not one. And it's insulting that one should be put over the other." That's not what we're saying. We're not saying help black kids and don't help anybody else. All right.
Absolutely.
Once again, I'm a black man. She's a black woman. We see deficiencies in our own culture, and we're brainstorming on what could help our community. But every community needs this help. Okay, sure. If you're underprivileged and if you're poor and if you need help in the white community, Latino community, Asian community, whatever community, by all means, let's help you. Why? Because let's say we focus only on the black community, right? And we uplift the black community and violence goes down, but we ignore poor whites or we will ignore poor Latinos. They're going to fall into the same pattern that poor blacks have fallen into with the murder and et cetera, et cetera. Right? This is not a, a DNA thing, a genetic thing.
Absolutely.
This is an economics thing. This is a social thing. So any group that falls into that category with those same ingredients are going to come out with the same outcome. So we're not in any way saying only help black people. We're saying help everybody, but we're brainstorming on what specifically could help our community because we're informed on our community. We're informed on
Absolutely.
the culture. All right. We grew up in the culture. All right. Another comment that was made by Black Sheepdog, which I think was a profound comment, because I was so pissed off about this, my damn self. If I could find it, Black Sheepdog says he's moderator for both the Discord and the live show. We appreciate Black Sheepdog, great
Yes.
supporter
Hey,
of the show.
Tony.
Black Sheepdog says the black community voted for the current idiot in office now, and I agree with that. And that comes with education. Like, especially Republicans, they want the black community to be more informed when it comes to voting because Republicans rightfully point out that black people often vote against their best interest by putting Democrats just by fiat, back into office without asking questions. That comes with education. That comes with being politically informed and understanding the economics instead of having the economics explained to you.
Exactly.
So understand, all my conservative viewers, that if you have a more educated black population, you might actually have more black people becoming conservatives. And if the black community was to switch to the Republican Party, I'm just hypothetically, you would win every single election because black people are still the swing vote. Soon Latinos will take over, but we're still at this moment the swing vote. We still could make either party take power.
That's right. Also, I just wanted to address a comment I believe that Scrappy made. I'm not
Mhm.
focusing on black versus brown. The topic of the conversation is about the black community, but I also just wanted to point out, just in case you didn't hear it from the beginning, my research for my dissertation was pertaining to black and Hispanic males. So it's not just about black males. That's just a topic of conversation. I just wanted to point that out.
Right. So, the statistics that she has and the knowledge she has that gave her doctorate was based on those two groups. We're not, like she said, we're not excluding anybody. We're just focusing
Absolutely.
on what we know.
Exactly.
Um, um, I'm gonna just check for more comments and then we'll wrap it up because I do have work tomorrow. I'm sure you do too.
Yes.
So many good comments there. And before we go, I'm gonna ask a question from you guys. I'm gonna actually see if I can set up a poll, and I'm going to. So while I'm setting this poll, do me a favor. Tell me what you're doing now. Like now that you have your doctorate, has your career changed? Has your life changed? Like, what are your aspirations?
Wow. Well, I'm definitely taking a little mini break until the new year comes in because I don't want to see another journal article or a book for a little bit. But my plan is to work on a couple of books. So I wanted to work on one that was kind of loosely based on my life. Of course, names will be changed to protect the innocent. But I wanted to talk about, my healing and accountability journey. I wanted to talk about how I got to where I am today, as a single Black mother. The struggle is real. I went through a lot over the years to get to where I am today. Unfortunately, there are people who I wish were here today to celebrate with me in this who aren't here, for whatever reason. So it's a lot of things. And the other thing is, too, I have to give you your flowers as well, because you are amazing. Being on your show as well as Gary Lamb, I've had so many followers. I've had
Oh,
so many people reach out to me who needed assistance with something. And let me just say, I assist people on an individual level for free. Companies and organizations is a little different. But anyone who has reached out to me, whether it was a DM, I've even had calls over Instagram where people needed assistance with their financial aid application, or they had questions about the college choice process, or they may have needed prayer. Whatever the case may be, that's me. That's who I am. You ever need assistance? You ever need help with applying for a job? Someone to look over your resume, whatever it is, I'm that person. The other thing is, I want to start my own nonprofit organization. I have a grant writing certificate. I also just recently became certified in mental health first aid. Let me just say that.
ooh,
So,
okay.
I firmly believe in educating yourself. Again, education is the passport to the future. Even though I have my
Mhm.
doctorate, that's not the end. I will still continue to, further educate myself. And the other thing is, too, I wanted to do some children's books because I want to
Okay.
help young Black and brown boys
Hmm.
overcome imposterism or imposter syndrome, whichever term you want
Okay.
to use.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, guys, that's awesome. Let's make sure we continue to support Dr. Cherry. Make sure that you link up with her on Instagram.
Yeah.
She's gonna send me her information, and I'll put it inside of the description of the show. Hit that like button, and Tony's over here clowning Beyond a Badge. We love Beyond a Badge. Don't hit the like button because Beyond a Badge sucks. All right. Beyond a Badge is a big friend of the show, and we appreciate him. Okay. So before we wrap up, I got to share this story with you guys, and I want you guys to give me your opinion. So I'm now going to post this poll in the community, and the poll says, should I rat on this man that offended me or not? And let me tell you the story before you start voting, ladies and gentlemen. So this weekend, I was working the clubs. All right, we got a little
Uh
club,
oh.
and I
Strategic
mean,
was in there twerking.
nah, not at all, not at all. I wasn't working it that way. I was working it, working. And we had some pickpockets coming into that club, right? So they
Oh,
sent us
wow.
over there to work with club security and hopefully identify these guys and nab them, right? And lo and behold, guess what? A pickpocketer um, stole a lady's phone. And but that's a different story. I don't know why I'm telling you that story. I'm gonna tell you the other story. The story that actually matters. I'm just getting late. I'm losing my mind. So anyway, that's why we were there. That's why I told you because that was why we was there. So a guy comes out of the club and he's arguing with the bouncers. They're telling him to leave. Right? You got to go. And he's there with a multicultural set of friends. And it's important that they're multicultural. Some were black, some were Latino, some were white. This particular guy was Latino. He looks South American, right? In origin. He had tats all over his body, tats on his hands, the whole nine. The only reason why I know is because he pointed it out. Like I'm looking at him, but I'm not really caring about his body art, right? So I'm trying to help the guy out, like, yo, just go because he's acting rowdy and I don't want to have to arrest him. All right. So he's like, "Oh, you're supposed to be here to protect and serve me. I pay your salary with my taxes, all this extra stuff." Drunk people talk all kinds of mess. I don't take
Oh,
it
yeah.
personally. I'm like, "Hey, buddy, man, just go." And then he tells me that he works for a very high end restaurant, right? I know the restaurant. I actually know the head of security. That restaurant is a part of a major hotel, and I know the head of security of that hotel, right? And so he's telling me he works there. And then he doesn't like that. I'm telling him, well, listen, man, you got a decent job, man. Don't mess that up. Just go, just leave. He looks at me. He's like, you know what? F you. He's like, I think you're
Mm.
profiling me because I'm Latino. You know what? F you, you mother effing N word. And then he ran off. Called me the
Wow.
N word. So my question to you guys in the chat: should I go to my boy who is a boss of that hotel? And that's a super high end hotel. If I just mentioned that to them, they would instantly fire the guy. I'm guaranteed this guy would get fired, and I know he works there. Should I rat on this guy for insulting me, or should I not? I want to see what you guys are going to vote. To rat or not to rat? That is the question.
Oh.
Now, mind you, later his boy comes up to me and he's like, yo, man, he's trying to give me a pound. Like, yo, I'm sorry. Like, nah, I ain't giving you no pound, man. I'm not friends with nobody's friends with that dude, whatever. He leaves. I was being petty. The dude comes back around again and he's like, you still mad? And then we start joking around like, I ain't mad. Give me a hug. I was like, we gave me dapped up, hugged a friend. The friend was black. And I'm like, yo, your boy called me the N-word, man. Like, what's up with that? He's like,
Mhm.
yo, I'm sorry. He's a real cool guy, but when he gets drunk, he gets crazy, you know? He's like, even I had almost put hands on him. I was like, but why you hanging out with somebody like that?
Wow.
Like, I joked him. I was like, yo, when he said that to me, my ancestors started talking to me. You know what I mean? He put the hands on this guy. But the bottom line is, right, he was with a multicultural group of people. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have, feelings about people that look like me. I'm not generally a person who is sensitive to those things. But, when you have a uniform on and somebody does and says things to you like that, you can't retaliate.
Yeah.
If he'd have said that to me and I'm in regular clothes, I'd have put the hurting on him. But he made me vulnerable because I could not tell him how I felt about it. Plus, he ran away. I could have said something verbally, which I was like, why? But he ran away, so he was a coward. But, there's but so much I can do. And he said it with such conviction. So that's what I'm conflicted about. Um, my family, my mother, my sisters, they said, rat on him. Wifey said, just leave it go. Just leave it alone and let it go. Let's see what the chat has to say about it. So I see it's changing. It was like 82%. Now it's down to 77. Let's go to the chat and see what these guys say. What these guys got to say about this. Should to rat or not to rat? That is. But first of all, we got a $10 super chat from David S. David says, I appreciate the good conversation you provide. Glad the doctor was on tonight. Thank you so much, David S. David S is on a roll. He actually put me on with this Tom McDonald new song that I didn't know called Sheeple. And I did a reaction to it. It's doing pretty good right now. A lot of people are checking it out. So I encourage everybody to go check out my Sheeple reaction. And of course, just go check out Tom McDonald's reaction, period. It's a very interesting song. A lot of what Tom says, I say, but I don't have the following he has, so he gets the credit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think on the low, Tom McDonald's a Strategic Eyes fan, and he just be listening and taking notes. I'm joking. Let's keep going. And next time I have you on the show, I want to talk more about this imposterism thing. But
Yes.
I'm not well versed on it. I don't like talking about things that I don't know about because I like to learn and also be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
So
Some people
I'm
may
gonna-
know it as imposter syndrome, but because technically, no, it's not classified in the DSM. No, it's
Mm.
not, a mental illness. So that's why some people call it imposterism. So,
Mm.
I'll say imposterism to not offend anyone. But what
Yeah.
I also do is one of the workshops that I do is
Mhm.
adopting a growth mindset to overcome imposterism. And
Mhm.
that's one that I do often to, a lot of these high schools as well as
Mhm.
colleges, because you'd be surprised at how many of us,
Mhm.
especially if you're first gen or you come from a marginalized community, you'd be surprised at how many of us are harboring these feelings and we really don't realize it.
Mhm. That's a deep topic. We definitely gotta jump into that. Scrappy said, "Who the f said you should biatch about being offended?" Suck it up, Cupcake. Scrappy's so rough on me, man. Why you so rough, Scrappy? Jesus Christ, bro. Scrappy me.
And also, let me just say, beyond the
Uh-huh.
badge, it's all love. I know
Yeah,
I probably pointed out your comments about 5 times, but it's all
that's all
love.
good. He's got tough
Exactly.
skin. He's a cop, man. We
Exactly. It's
we,
all
we
love.
take all type we take all type of abuse, man. That man ain't crying right now. He laughing. Let's keep going. Stevie Martin says, "Good thing he ran." You damn right, yo. I looked at my sergeant. I was like, "Yo, sergeant, you just called me an N-word." He saw it in my face. He was like, "Chill,
Yes.
strategic,
You don't want this. This ain't what you
please,
want right here.
please." And the reason why I started with the original story to let you guys know we're there, but we ended up catching one of those guys. I took the collar and I was and I worked for like 2 days processing his
Mm.
collar. These guys were a part of a big ring, and it's
Wow.
and to be honest with you, not to give too much away, but you guys don't know much about what I do. These guys were a part of some of the migrants who have been coming into been bused to the state.
Mm.
So whatever people feel about that, you know, we don't know who these folks are. Even if you feel like we want to help everybody, or you feel like nobody should be here, it does. Forget about that part of the basic level of the conversations. We don't know who these people are.
Mm.
We don't know who they were in Mexico and Argentina or wherever, that they come from, Nicaragua, whatever. We don't know. We don't know if these aren't criminals that were just released out of the prisons and said, go to America,
Yeah.
because some of these folks are coming here and they're doing crime right now. Right now. Like, they're breaking into people's cars. It is what it is. I don't want to go too deep into these ongoing cases, but it is what it is. Mike Brown said he's probably sexually attracted to me. Hilarious. The Alabaster said, as an employer, I want to know because he may do it to others, which can negatively impact business if someone takes to social media. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a
Yeah.
good point. We'll see what the poll says when the show is done. Um, uh, Beyond Bass says, notice the likes never went up when Black Sheepdog basically said, put a like up if you think Beyond the Badge sucks. You're right, because we love you, Beyond the Badge. Now, just put the likes up now, guys. We're not talking about Beyond the Badge anymore. Please hit the like button at this moment. If you like Beyond the Badge, please hit the like moment. The like
Yes.
button. Let's keep going. Stevie Marley says, listen to mom, so don't listen to wifey. Report that ass. Uh, let's keep going. And I think that's about it. I mean, it's a few comments, but so many. XOXO
Mm.
Bob says, as strategic, I show rat him out simply because I am a pro. Strategic. um, Beyond the Bat says, we can always respectfully agree to disagree. That's what I love about this show. It's always okay to have conversations, especially about tough topics, and we should more as a country. I agree 1000%. Wiser
Absolutely.
words have never been spoken. I appreciate you, Beyond the Bat. This is exactly why we're here on the Strategic Eye Show. I'm just scrolling through real fast. I might miss some good comments, but it's time to get the hell out of here. All right. Before we go, let's check the poll. And the poll, let's see, how do you close a poll? End the poll. I'm ending the poll in 5, 4. You better get your votes in 3, 2, 1. The poll has ended. Let's see what the results are. Did it end? And it's not telling me the results. I don't know what the results was.
You
That
gotta pay
sucks.
extra for that.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. This is it. It came up. It pops up in the chat. That's awesome. So the end result is 73% rat him out, 26% no. So I don't know. I think about it because at the end of the day, to me, he's a herb. He has a vajayjay because no disrespect to vajayjays, because he ran away. Like, if he was a dude that want to fight me and all of that, then it's like, all right, this guy, all right, but he ran away. And so to me, it's just like it's really not that big of a deal. You know, he worked for this ritzy restaurant, but it's not like he was rich. He's like probably like a
Mm.
or something. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
the bottom line is, like, I don't know. I have to think about it. My inclination says just leave it alone. Let this guy make his money. A lot of times, like when I did internal affairs, and I'll let you guys go. I know I'd be talking my ass off. I'm sorry. When I did internal affairs, one of the things that was hard for me is when I would do these high level investigations on corrupt officers, I would oftentimes start to realize their personal life. Like, they have kids, they own their house. These are things that these documents would come up that you'd find out about a person. And I would always would think about the family that has to suffer because I'm about to fire this person. Now, they did it themselves,
Mm.
but my investigation is going to end that career. And so many officers, you'll hear, because they're friends with people, they lost their house, they lost their cars, they lost their families because of the investigations. And people, we'd always say, we didn't do it. They did it to themselves. But if you are a person like me who loves people, you're gonna have an empathy for it. You're gonna feel a little bad. I don't take the blame, but I still feel bad. So if I go and I know, I'm in a unique position that I actually know somebody who is in management there. If I was to go there and just mention, this man's life would be over, is in terms of having this stable job. And I don't know what little girl or little boy he's supporting that's not going to understand that daddy lost his job because he called the wrong person a name, and now we're hungry. So I don't know if I don't know if it means that much to me. If it truly hurt me, then I think I'd be able to justify it. But the fact that I look at him like he's not even on my level, not for who he is, but how he presents himself, to me that night.
So I'm just going to play devil's advocate. You don't think that that could be a teachable moment? So he knows that moving forward, not to do that again? Or the next person he does it to will probably cause physical harm?
Possibly, but I kind of am starting to lose faith in people. Most
Mm,
people just double down in their ignorance and say, see, that's the type of thing an N-word would do. You know what I mean? Now I
yeah,
really hate the N-words because they took my
yeah,
job. So many people, nobody wants to take accountability for their actions. That's why we're in this state right now.
I
That's why
agree.
we see all this violence in my community, in our community, and we see all the politicians acting the way they acting, and nobody takes accountability. He's not. I don't have faith that he's gonna sit down and have an introspective conversation with himself as, how did I get here? Why did I say that? How could how did that word affect that person based on his
Mhm.
culture and history? And how can I grow from it to never do that again? You really think he's gonna do that?
Yeah, yeah.
The guy with tattoos all over his hands and all of that stuff, looking like he MS-13. I mean, and I'm not being disrespectful because he's South American. I'm not. I'm literally. He looked like it. Like if you type in Mexican gang members, that's how he looked. He fit the stereotype. I might be totally ignorant in making that statement because you can have tattoos, but when you have them on your knuckles and your hands, those are typically the type of things certain people put on their bodies to portray to you that they're somebody, that they represent a certain lifestyle. Just like if I walk around with my pants below my butt and you can see the curvature of my ass and the decorations on my boxers, you're not going to say, "Oh, that's that father of three who is a professional and a college educated man." You're going to say, "Oh, that dude must be from the hood who lives
Yeah.
in the suburbs." You're going to be like, "Oh, he's probably from the hood," because I'm dressing and acting like somebody who lives in the hood. If I'm gonna portray myself, that's what people are going to think about me.
No, you're right.
So I have no faith, and I could be
Tony.
wrong, but I have no faith that this guy would actually learn from it. He'd probably just double down in his ignorance. To me,
Mm. I mean, I feel like if it is still that important to you after you ponder on it,
hmm
maybe try to talk to him while he's in a sober mood and see how that conversation goes.
mm, maybe it's
So
possible.
maybe it doesn't have to be, you have to escalate it and, you know,
Well, the
go.
only thing I would feel about, I would have to think second is I don't want him to now flip the tables on me and be like, "Oh, well, I'm stalking him and harassing him, and I'm using my position, to track him down and all this extra stuff."
Yeah.
But if we had more of a intimate connection, like let's say he worked in an area that I frequented often, that I would
Okay.
see him. That's different. Like let's say he worked in the deli I usually buy my food from. I see him every
Hmm.
day. Yo,
Hmm.
can I have a word with you?
Yeah.
Or he's in my circle, or he's in my community. He's a next door neighbor. But I only know of this guy through work, and I only know his employer through work.
Hmm.
So I would hate for him to be able to try and flip it on me.
Yeah.
To me, it's either you all in or you're not.
No, I understand.
That's how
And
I
and then
feel.
and once again, I know it goes back to the debate that was had many, many moons ago. But
Yeah,
that N word, man, I'm so tired of hearing it.
yeah, yeah,
It's like it's like that's the jugular.
yeah,
If it's
yeah,
a black person, you get into a disagreement with them, they go into that.
yeah,
Like I am so like even with us, not you and I, but I'm speaking in
mhm,
general for our community. I'm even
yeah.
tired of them using it as a term of endearment. It's like, can we just pick another word?
Right. Yeah,
Any other
absolutely.
word. Can we
It's
do
an
something
ugly
else?
word.
I'm
It's
tired
an
of
ugly
hearing,
word.
even the
It's-
B word. I'm tired of
yeah,
hearing other women call each other it as
yeah.
a term of endearment and sisterhood. No,
It's
no.
disgusting. It's disgusting. But we got to get the hell out of here. What time is it? It's almost midnight. Let's get the hell
Yes.
out of here. I got to
I can
work.
keep talking for the next 5 hours.
Yeah. And I really only got like a day off, really, because much of my first day off was me waiting to talk to a district attorney at work. Spent the
Wow.
night at work. So when you're done with an arrest, you have to wait. You can't go home until you speak to a district attorney in my jurisdiction, at least. Everybody else is different. We don't complain about it as officers because we're getting paid overtime the entire time.
Yeah.
you know, so whether that takes 8 hours or 16 hours or 18 hours, you're getting paid for it, but it's still time away from home. So let me get the hell out of here, Dr. Cherry. I appreciate you so much for joining me today,
Thank
for
you for
giving me
having
this
me.
space. One day you're going to be a very rich and accomplished educator, and I wouldn't have been able to get you on the show then. So I got you
Oh no,
in the beginning of your career.
I will always make time for you. Once again, I just thank you so much for always
Mhm.
keeping in contact with me and, always having me on your platform.
Yeah.
My plan eventually is to start my own podcast. So,
Cool.
of course, you will definitely be one of those people on there. And hopefully by then I can pay you to be on the show.
Well,
Depending, God willing, depending on how much I'm making by then.
nah,
But
it's all good, man. When you have your 2 million subscribers, the payment will be getting me some subscribers.
exactly, exactly.
It's all
I
good,
really
man. We're
appreciate it.
almost XOXO Bob said we're almost to 7K subs. We definitely are. We're almost there. We're making moves. I
Woohoo! That's
appreciate you guys.
wonderful.
Listen, until the next one, who knows what the next topic will be. But definitely I'm interested in the whole imposter situation. That sounds very interesting. We'll talk about it, all right? All right. I'm gonna let you go now and say goodbye to my people, all right?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, you can follow me on Instagram, that educated lady, one word. I will always be that educated lady for whatever. If you need resources, you need assistance, if you know of someone who's going to college or thinking about going to college, or someone who wants to go back to college, whatever it may be, please let me know. And if you work for an employer that is looking for someone to be a speaker, do a workshop. I also want to put in a plug. I was a keynote speaker at a private college not too long ago. That was the
Nice.
first. So, slowly but surely I'm climbing up there. So, whatever it may be, definitely contact me. And once again, thank you so much for being up so late with us. And just thank you. Thank you so much, Strategic.
You got it. See you later. All right, man. I think that was a really good show, man. I like to bring you guys different things, man. Different conversations. Sometimes you agree with it, sometimes you don't. It's all good. This is a conversation, just like Beyond the Bad said, these are the type of conversations we need to have. All right. These are the conversations that people are afraid to have because they don't want to lose viewers. Some people have mostly conservative audiences. I think my audience is pretty mixed, but I do have leaning a little bit more conservative audience. A lot of YouTubers won't want to have this conversation when you're talking about funding education and stuff like that because they feel like, oh, I'm going to offend my viewers. They're all going to leave me. That's not what the Strategic Eyes show is about. We're about having uncomfortable conversations. We're about having different opinions. We're about sharing with each other, man, and doing it in an adult way. So I appreciate everybody who contributed in the comment section, everybody who vented and debated their opinion and their point of view. And you guys are awesome, man. I got the best show on the planet. You know, you guys don't understand how happy I am to have attractive viewers like you. We grow slow, but we grow honestly. There's a lot of people who shoot through subscribers, and within 6 months they have 200,000 subscribers. We don't know how many of those subscribers are bots. We don't know how many of those subscribers are just there because they're hearing exactly what they want to hear when they want to hear it. That's not what I'm delivering to you. I'm speaking from my heart, and I'm bringing people who speak from their heart as well. Sometimes you're going to agree with me, and sometimes you're not. but I'm happy that you're here for the ride. So anyway, I'm gonna get the hell up out of here. Please make sure you like, subscribe, join the channel. David S, thank you so much for that super chat. Make sure that you're in tune. Make sure that you subscribe to all my social media. It's all Strategic Eyes. You can't miss it. Just type it in whatever social network you have, and I'll most likely pop up. And make sure that you are trying your best to help out the show if you can. We do need to support. We've got a Patreon, we got a PayPal, we got a Cash App. It's all scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And we certainly do have YouTube membership program. So if you're interested in becoming a member of Strategic Guys Show, you would be greatly appreciated. Guys, have a wonderful night. Strategic is out of here. Peace.